Never a dull day when filming YouTube videos. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell Smith, and today I am going over the great debate in photography, which is whether or not you should go to school for photography. That includes college, university, any formal post-secondary training. There seem to be a lot of opinions on this, offline and especially online in photography communities, and I'm gonna give it to you straight. Well, maybe not straight, I'll give it to you gaily forward. I personally see both sides, and I actually don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, so I really want to present both to you. Now, I do want to actually start off by saying, when I was researching photography as a business, according to, and I'm going to reference my notes to make sure I get this right, according to a Statistics Canada labor market report, only 33 to 34% of all photographers study in their field. So I think part of the reason why a lot of people online say, no, don't go to school for photography, do so because they didn't. Because about only 1/3 of people actually study it. But we're going to consider both sides, the pros and the cons. So especially if you're thinking about photography as a career, you know all the reasons why you should, and maybe all the reasons why you shouldn't. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things business, higher ed, mental health, photography, and life. Okay, I'm going to start with all the reasons why you should not go to school for photography. My list, when I just went bullet for bullet, point for point, the list was a little bit longer for why you shouldn't. And a few reasons why you shouldn't were kind of disproving or discrediting reasons why you should. So let's start with reasons why you shouldn't. In reason number one, and I think is one of the biggest reasons, the biggest marker for success, the biggest thing that leads to success in photography is your portfolio and your reputation. And you don't need school to build those. School certainly helps. School can help refine it. It can do lots of things. But at its core, truly and honestly, I cannot, sit here and say, yes, you should go to school to build a portfolio and a reputation. You can do that on your own. Next, another reason why you shouldn't go to school is that for such a flooded industry, and most photographers, almost everywhere I look, say no matter where they are, photography is an extremely flooded market. And so paying that much money to go to school for photography is a big risk. Are you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to spend that much money to learn a skill that maybe you don't continue doing? Next, and I think this is the other really big reason for the case of why you shouldn't go to school for photography, self-learning and self-directed learning opportunities are plentiful. There are so many. Learning has become far more accessible and more democratized, so more people can access it. So you have things like just watching YouTube videos. You can take courses like through Coursera or Udemy or LinkedIn Learning. You can also, frankly, trial and error learning yourself. So considering how much you may pay for it, you can also save a lot of that money by learning yourself. Next, photography is arguably not a terribly difficult skill to learn. It's not unskilled labor, but it's also it wouldn't be classified as skilled labor. It would be considered semi-skilled labor, and it is something that you can learn. If you're willing to poke around with your camera to experiment and to play, you really can learn photography on your own. Especially if you try harder, you try in new ways. You can figure it out. The next reason why maybe you shouldn't go to school for photography is about time and time lost. Because when it comes to time and learning, it is a zero-sum game. Time learning is time that you are not working. So that's lost money, lost revenue, lost opportunities. And then finally, and this has a few points to it, our problems with programs, especially take it from someone who has worked in higher ed, developed courses in higher ed, is now back as a student. There are a few problems with programs, and the problem depends on what school you go to in their curriculum. I think the first big problem, and I hear this from other photographers, is that you're not given enough business training. You're taught, yes, many skills on how to use your camera, how to shoot, how to do lots of things, but not how to run a business, because most, like an overwhelming majority of photographers are freelance. They work for themselves, not for a company. So you have to know business. Some programs don't even have business training. Others that do often don't have enough. And I've heard from graduates who said that they could have used a whole other course, a whole other semester, a whole other year on business development training. I think another problem with the program is programs have specific focus areas, and there's very few, if any, programs that will give you a general breadth. So you're kind of bound by the schools that you can access either online or in person, and then what their focus areas are. So if the school nearest you is offering like fine art photography and you don't want to do fine art photography, you're kind of out of luck. Finally, the fundamental problem with any post-secondary training in actually any field is that you have to have the financial ability to study. That means you have to be willing to pay the fees. The other thing with studying photography is most, if not all, programs require you come in with the right gear right away, and that's camera, lenses, computer editing platforms, and additional tools. So every program I looked at required at least on top a tripod and a flash and a tether cable. So you're paying for all these extra things. Not only though are you paying for things, you also have lost income or lost revenue. So for me, for example, as a mature student, it hit me hard that like I'm going from making an amazing salary to not only making less, but I have less access, I have less ability to make money because I'm in school. So there's lots of reasons why you shouldn't go to school for photography. As you can see, there's lots of reasons why you shouldn't go to school for photography. I want to leave you on a hopeful note though, and I also think there's a lot of merit to going to school for photography. So here's a bunch of reasons why you absolutely should. First, school is always going to present to you your learning in a structured, graduated system. So you'll get all the skills, arguably more than you would get on your own, and one step at a time. So it's not going to be just you on Reddit looking at a beautiful image and then taking weeks or months to figure out how it was done and to recreate it. Someone will walk you through step by step how to do it. Which brings me to my second point that I think will just make you a better photographer. You will be forced to do things and to learn things and to create images that you wouldn't normally on your own. So you might be interested in 2 or 3 subject areas, but most programs are going to require you to take a large variety of photos and create many different types of media that you wouldn't normally, and you will learn from those places where you wouldn't have gone on your own. I know one big area in most photography programs I looked at is video. Many programs are moving towards teaching both photography and video because more and more businesses and clients are asking for it. But if you didn't want to learn that on your own, you wouldn't have done it. School kind of forces you out of your comfort zone to try new things. Next is access to pro equipment. Every photography program I've ever seen, anyone I've ever talked to, they give you access to pro equipment, even if it's to rent, even if it's to borrow, even if it's to test on. You can play with all the shiny new toys. Another thing I want to share about why you should go to school, and I actually learned this through my social work schooling, is something called the paper ceiling. So the paper ceiling is a form of discrimination based on educational credentials. If you don't have that piece of paper, you hit a ceiling. There's only so much you can do. But when you have an educational credential, like a diploma, like a degree, you can be afforded more opportunities. For example, this absolutely breaks my heart. There's this photographer that I love, I'm almost obsessed with. Their work is so beautiful and stunning, and at the time of recording, I think they've been practicing as a professional photographer, making big bucks for like 8 years. They couldn't get a teaching job at a college because they didn't have any educational credential. They were completely self-taught. So even though they were making 6 figures and had been doing this for 8 years and had industry contacts all across the province and around the country, they couldn't teach because of that paper ceiling. So there is something to be said for that. Another reason why you should go to school for photography, I personally love this one, are the discounts. Every school I talked to and that I ever toured or looked into when thinking about going to school for photography, it was wild the discounts you could get on editing platforms, camera bodies, lenses, gear, equipment. Through your school, just through by attending the school, you can get discounts. But then also, every program I know has visiting reps from different programs. Canon, Nikon, and Sony were the three big ones that visit every single school every single year. You can get specific discounts from them on those visits as well. And you wouldn't have had that if you were studying at a school. Next, by going to school, you will get exposure to artistic concepts and ways of doing and being that you wouldn't have on your own, that again make you a better photographer. This refers to actually both like the commercial side and the artistic side. So you're going to learn about, and you're most likely to learn about art history and art style and composition techniques and be forced to learn them and forced to create images that reflect those styles. Again, you wouldn't have done that if you were on your own. Next, and it's funny because I kind of mentioned this in why maybe you shouldn't go to school, you will get some business development training, and you will get some business development training that is geared to photographers. There are, at least in the province of Ontario, where I'm based out of, there are many small business centers with small business advisors that you can access for free that is government funded to help you start and grow a business. But those folks don't know photography the way photography instructors do. So you can get some business development training from some photographers when you are in school. That way you're not guessing on your own, you're not trying to figure it out on your own, and frankly paying for expensive lessons, like if a contract falls through and you get sued. Next, and I'm saving my like really big good reasons why for the end. The first one is mentorship, the opportunity for mentorship from your instructors, from industry connections that you can make, both in school and out, is just unparalleled. If you can have a mentor, and typically in a school setting, this is gonna sound terrible, but you're perceived as less of a threat to other photographers or to instructors. Versus if you're out in the industry, you're just working on your own and you ask someone, hey, can I follow you around, learn all your methods, see your contracts, and watch your workflows? You might be perceived as a threat or competition. So you can get mentorship through school. Now, the other thing tied to that is the networking. I would argue this is the biggest reason why you absolutely should go to school. I built a 6-figure business, and the biggest reason that got me there was networking. It's not what I knew, it's not what I was able to do, it's who I knew. Who you know is so important, and school can make those connections through visiting guest lectures or going to visit galleries, through many different opportunities. The networking is phenomenal. Next, something that you get in school that you don't get really anywhere else that is going to totally elevate your photography is the feedback and the critiques. A central hallmark of most, if not all, photography programs is the critiques. So you create your work, you present it to your class, and people start praising it and ripping it apart. This is going to make your photography better. If you just freelance, you just go out on your own without really education, without involving other people, you don't really have critiques. You have no clients, radio silence online, and no one responding to your content. But that could be avoided if you actually sat in a critique session where people told you what worked really, really well in your photos and what was working against you and how to improve. Finally, and this comes from me as a marketer primarily, is the added credibility or the perceived credibility of having gone to a school. Considering how few people study photography and how flooded the market is, anything that can help you get ahead and have a competitive advantage is generally a good thing. And educational credentials can do that. It can help with that. And that's both sides of the debate. Should you or shouldn't you go to school for photography? I will not tell you one way or another. It totally depends on what your goals are, what you think you might do, where you want to go, quite frankly, access to finances and the ability to financially afford going to school, and a lot of other things. I simply present this to you as equally passionate both sides of the debate for you to decide. Comment and let me know not whether or not you think it's a good idea, but any other reasons for why you should or why you shouldn't go to school. I'd love to hear other ideas as well. As always, make sure you like and subscribe for all things business, higher ed, photography, mental health, and life. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.